Right now, as you are watching this, Iranian missiles are turning Bahrain's Bapco Energy's refinery into a massive, cascading fireball. This is not a drill. Satellite data from marine traffic confirms all commercial shipping through the Strait of Hormuz has already collapsed by 92%. You have 14 days. This is not a metaphor. It is a literal mathematical countdown to systemic fracture. But this chaos is not random. It is the result of a surgical economic demolition. To understand the logic behind it, and what happens when that timer hits zero, we must go back to the inciting event. EU 200 hours, February 28th, 2026, Manama, Bahrain. This is ground zero, the moment the 14-day countdown began. Inside the US Navy's 5th Fleet headquarters, the night watch was routine. Analysts monitored holographic displays tracking tanker traffic through the Strait of Hormuz. The low hum of servers was punctuated only by quiet, encrypted comms checks. The heartbeat of a facility that was the undisputed nerve center for American power projection. The first missile strike was not a random barrage. It was surgical. A percussive shockwave vaporized the building's facade as the command and control center was hit, severing the brain from the body. Screens went dark. Emergency lights flickered on, painting the chaos in a stark red glare as klaxons shrieked. Seconds later, a drone swarm descended on the facility's softest arteries, the fuel depots. Within minutes, the harbor was illuminated by towering columns of fire, turning the massive tanks into funeral pyres visible for miles. The symbol of untouchable security was now a beacon of vulnerability. This was never just about a military base. Pay close attention to the mechanism. Almost simultaneously, precision strikes targeted key Saudi oil terminals. The logic is a masterclass in economic demolition. You neutralize the fleet's ability to protect the region's energy flow, and then you hit the energy flow itself. The attack crippled the only US deepwater port in the entire Persian Gulf, capable of servicing an aircraft carrier, leaving hundreds of tankers exposed. The missiles were merely the trigger. The true weapon is a simple calculation. The fixed fuel burn rate of a carrier strike group measured against the thousands of nautical miles to the next secure Allied port. A logistical clock has been started. It cannot be stopped. That unbreakable law is not a complex algorithm. It is a simple, brutal logistical chain with a fixed timeline. The Strait of Hormuz is functionally closed. Our data shows commercial shipping traffic is down between 81 and 92%. Approximately 150 tankers are stranded. This seals off the primary export artery for the Gulf states, trapping roughly 20 million barrels of daily oil production inside the system. Think of it as a simple physics problem. A faucet is running at full capacity. That's the Gulf's daily production. The drain is plugged. That's the Strait of Hormuz. The bathtub it's filling, the region's finite storage capacity, is rapidly approaching its limit. The overflow is not a possibility. It is a mathematical certainty. Based on current production rates and verified storage levels, that overflow point will be reached in approximately 14 days. Once the tanks are full, production cannot be scaled back. It must halt. Completely. The immediate consequence is the abrupt removal of nearly 20% of global seaborne oil from the market. Our models are clear. They project an initial price shock of $50 to $80 per barrel, with some models projecting well over the $100 mark. A number on a screen fails to capture the velocity of the impact. A $50 spike is not a headline. For you, it is an immediate increase of over $1 per gallon at the pump. It is your weekly grocery bill rising by 15% as diesel costs cascade through the entire supply chain. It is a systemic shockwave that directly targets the value of your portfolio. The model predicts a $50–80 price shock. But the real impact is in the second-order effects. For the business owners and investors here, based on your industry, what's the first non-obvious domino you see falling from this? Share your analysis in the comments. This 14-day timeline is not a forecast. It is a physical constraint, a matter of volume and flow rates. Yet the intelligence coming out of Washington this morning suggests the administration is operating on a completely different timeline. Their entire economic and military response is built around a 100-day window. 100 days to solve a 14-day physics problem. This is what we call an elite timeline delusion. A dangerous cognitive gap between the mechanics of the world and the ambitions of those in command. Just as the physical limits of the crisis became clear, President Trump publicly shifted his war aims. What was initially sold as a swift surgical operation, a matter of weeks, was now reframed. He stated he needed at least 100 more days. Pay close attention to the mechanism here. This is not political rhetoric. This is a fatal miscalculation being codified into strategy. We have confirmation from internal CENTCOM planning documents. Their logistics, their entire operational posture, is being built for 100+ days of sustained operations. The delusion is not just in the White House. It has infected the military command structure. The global system, the markets, the insurers, the shippers, now sees this. It understands the leadership is not responding to the 14-day physics problem. They are responding to a political narrative. This removes any hope for a rational, timely resolution. It guarantees the tank tops will overflow. The causal supply collapse accelerates because confidence in a sane outcome has just been vaporized. This specific brand of delusion, betting on a political timeline against a physical one, is not a new pattern for this leader. In fact, this exact miscalculation, this same belief that he could bend reality to his will, once brought him to the very edge of personal financial annihilation. To understand the sheer recklessness of the current moment, you must first understand that story. Let's go back to 1990. In April of that year, Donald Trump's empire was at its zenith. The crown jewel, the Trump Taj Mahal casino, had just opened in Atlantic City, a monument built on extreme leverage. He was the master of a debt-fueled reality, but just 4 months later, on August the 2nd, an external shockwave hit the system. Iraq invaded Kuwait. The mechanism was immediate. Oil prices spiked from around $15 a barrel to over $40. The United States tipped into a recession that officially began in July 1990. For the Taj Mahal, the effect was catastrophic. Consumer spending collapsed. The casino's revenues plunged. By March 1991, it filed for bankruptcy. Trump's entire empire fractured, and he became personally liable for nearly $900 million. The ruin was absolute. There's a story that, walking down Fifth Avenue with his wife, he pointed to a homeless man on the street. He turned to her and said, "You see that man? Right now, he's worth $900 million more than me." Creditors seized operational control. They forced the liquidation of his assets, the yacht, the airline. And in a final display of his loss of control, they put him on a personal spending allowance of $450,000 a month. This is not a cautionary tale. This is a clinical, historical proof of the mechanism. It demonstrates how a sudden Mideast oil shock demolishes even the most powerful, highly leveraged entities with mathematical certainty. And now, that same mechanism has been triggered. But the stakes are no longer personal. They are global. with the administration locked into its political timeline, willfully ignoring the physical one, the system is breaking, and Iran is preparing to play its final card. The US administration's 100-day regime change timeline was now a fixed policy objective. The response from Tehran was no longer strategic. It was a function of existential calculus. Pay close attention to the credibility Iran had established. Their threat to close the Strait of Hormuz was not rhetoric. It was executed with naval mines and swarm boat attacks that choked traffic to a crawl by late February. Their warning of direct strikes on US assets was fulfilled with a coordinated drone and missile attack on the Al Udeid Air Base staging area, inflicting dozens of casualties. Every warning was followed by kinetic action. The pattern was absolute. On day 47 of the US timeline, March 2026, following confirmed joint strikes on Iran's Fordow and Parchin facilities, Tehran made its final declaration. The timing was precise, the logic symmetrical. They had been struck at their nuclear heart, so they would threaten the same in return. Broadcast via the state-run ISNA news agency for the entire world to see, a senior military official stated, "Iran will target Dimona if Israel and US seek regime change." The target was not an oil field, not a military base, it was the Negev Nuclear Research Center, Israel's aging, largely unhardened heavy water reactor and the core of its undeclared nuclear deterrent. This single threat was not against the facility itself. It was against the sky above it. A strike on Dimona, even a conventional one, risked breaching the reactor core. Prevailing winds from the southeast would carry a radioactive plume directly over Tel Aviv, Amman, and Damascus. The models were immediate and unforgiving. Hundreds of thousands of casualties from acute radiation sickness within 72 hours. A generational contamination zone, rendering vast tracts of the Levant uninhabitable. In that moment, the entire calculus of the conflict inverted. The 14-day countdown to global supply collapse, the very mechanism we have been tracking, was rendered secondary. The world was no longer staring at economic demolition. It was staring at the mechanics of radiological annihilation. While war rooms in Washington and Tel Aviv modeled fallout patterns, another map was already being torn apart on the ground. The map of social trust. For one Filipino engineer in Dubai, who for 10 years had built his life on the unwritten promise of Gulf stability, the end did not arrive with a missile launch. It arrived with a silent, empty ATM. That silent ATM was a signal. The first tremor of a systemic fracture that was about to invalidate the lives of millions. For decades, the deal was simple. Your labor in exchange for prosperity. But the core product the Gulf states sold was not just wealth. It was absolute predictable safety. Pay close attention to this. The promise was this. A woman could walk alone through a city street at 4 in the morning. No fear, no danger. That was the reality of Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Doha. That reality is gone. The new reality is a phone screen glowing at 2 a.m. It is not a text from family. It is a red banner. A missile alert. Suddenly, the concrete walls of a luxury apartment, once a symbol of permanence and achievement, feel like paper. The dream of stability has been replaced by the nightmare of closed airports and the constant low-frequency hum of fear. Tens of thousands of expatriates are now stranded. We are not talking about a small minority. These foreign workers comprise between 39 and 88% of the populations of these states. They are not an element in the system. They are the system. And now, they are the human collateral. The cascading real cost of a security deal with America that has catastrophically failed. This cost is not measured on a stock ticker. It is measured in broken lives. With this human catastrophe now a fixed variable, the strategic calculus simplifies. The time for nuanced scenarios is over. There are now only two paths forward, two opposing endgames. The question is no longer if a final blow will land, but which one it will be. The strategic calculus has now been reduced to two proposals on the table, two mutually exclusive endgames. The first is Iran's offer, visible on radar screens across the Gulf as a fleet of idle supertankers. It is a tactical retreat designed to avert total system failure. The terms are clear: a full withdrawal of United States forces from the region. In exchange, all attacks on energy infrastructure cease. The Strait of Hormuz reopens. The 14-day countdown clock, ticking down on every trading floor terminal, stops. Markets stabilize overnight. The second is Donald Trump's personal directive, overriding his institutional advisors. An absolutist ambition for 100 more days of warfare. The stated objective is total regime change in Iran. A gamble for his legacy and direct control over its vast oil resources. This path guarantees a global depression, driven by sustained triple-digit oil prices, a seize-up in credit markets, and the paralysis of global trade. Pay close attention to the mechanism here. The unfolding disaster is therefore not an accident. It is not an inevitability of complex forces. It is the direct and measurable result of a single avoidable choice. The difference between a strategic off-ramp and the deliberate demolition of trillions in public and private wealth. The market models, however, are still fixated on the first-order effect on oil. This is a tactical error. Even if the pragmatic path is chosen, it no longer matters. The real wealth demolition has already begun, permanently locked into the global system through second and third order fractures in shipping insurance markets and the food supply chains that depend on them. That is a timeline of damage far longer and far more costly than a 14-day oil shock. Headlines will remain fixed on oil. This is a fatal miscalculation. The first second-order shockwave is not in crude, but in agriculture and energy security. The Strait of Hormuz is the choke point for approximately 20% of global LNG and, more critically, up to 40% of the world's traded fertilizer. With Qatar Energy halting all LNG shipments, the mechanism is now clear. The LNG halt delivers an immediate power generation shock to Europe and Asia. The fertilizer disruption targets the upcoming Northern Hemisphere planting season, guaranteeing yield reductions and higher food prices 2 quarters from now. A sustained wave of food and energy inflation through year-end is no longer a forecast. It is now locked into the supply chain timeline. That physical supply shock is the first-order effect. The second, and far more durable consequence, is the structural repricing of global trade risk. With major insurers cancelling war risk coverage, tanker traffic in the Gulf has already dropped 80%. This is not a temporary disruption. In past crises of this magnitude, freight and insurance premiums have multiplied by up to 5x, and a significant portion of that increase becomes a permanent fixture. This functions as a structural choke point tax on global trade, manifesting as a higher required return on capital for any business dependent on maritime logistics. This forces a repricing of what asset models call globalization beta. The premium once earned from frictionless global supply chains is now a penalty. Expect a deliberate capital flight away from exposed consumer goods and manufacturing and toward regionally secured commodity producers and hardened domestic infrastructure. The true classified edge is understanding that these systemic fractures the reliance on a single waterway for global food security. The illusion of risk-free maritime transit will reshape markets for years after the headlines fade. This requires an immediate portfolio audit. First, map all portfolio exposure to second-order fertilizer and LNG input costs. Second, stress test every holding against a sustained 3x to 5x increase in global freight costs. Third, identify and reduce positions whose growth model depends on pre-crisis levels of globalization. This is the clinical analysis required to see cascading costs before they become cascading losses. To ensure you have this framework for our next briefing, subscribe now.